Tony sat down with Becket Fund with an attorney to deal with the parents' case that the Supreme Court heard arguments about last week. And I'd like to share a part of that interview from Tony's program. It's called This Week on Capitol Hill. Here's how Tony got this conversation started, and we'll come back afterwards.
So explain the issue here in this case.
So in 2022, Montgomery County Public Schools introduced curriculum that for pre-kindergarten through fifth graders that are storybooks. And these storybooks present topics like a puppy that gets lost at a pride parade. And at the end of that book, which is designated specifically for pre-K, which in Montgomery County can have people as young as 3, there's a I Spy section where it says, hey, go back through this book and try to find things like leather or drag king or drag queen. And not only did the school board introduce these books, but they also gave their teachers specific instruction of how to teach the books. And so, if a child says, hey, boys have to like girls or girls can't like girls, the teachers are instructed to disrupt either or thinking. And so when these books were first implemented and this instruction was first given, for the first year or so, parents were allowed to opt their children out of the classroom. But in March of 2023, the school board reversed course overnight and said, we're not going to let you know when these books are going to be read. We're not going to give you the opportunity to opt your kids out of the books. And this caused a massive backlash by predominantly religious parents of Muslim and Ethiopian Orthodox faith, as well as others. My firm, the Becket Fund, represents parents from Muslim backgrounds, Jewish backgrounds, Christian backgrounds who sued the school district saying, hey, you can implement this curriculum if you so choose, but we want to opt our kids out of it.
Why did the school change course? Was it too many parents were wanting their kids out of the curriculum, and so they were afraid that they weren't going to be able to get this information into the minds of kids?
We don't know for sure. They've given kind of differing reasons. On the one hand, there's some evidence to say like some parents that hold views that the books are good things were upset that other parents were allowed to opt out. During the course of litigation, the school district came forward with this, there's too many opt-outs for us to handle. That seems a little absurd given that the school district handles opt-outs in a number of other contexts. Before this case, they had religious diversity guidelines because Montgomery County is one of the most religiously diverse counties in the country, saying, if anything substantially burdens your beliefs, we'll opt you out of the classroom. And it wasn't until parents started opting out of these books specifically that they changed course. So
Colten, that is the issue before the court. The parents simply wanting, they're not trying to get rid of they're not trying to pull the books off the shelves. They're just saying, look, we want to know when our children are going to be exposed to this material because it runs counter to what we're teaching them. We just want to know so we can opt them out. Is that the question?
That's right, Tony. It's purely, we don't control the school board. We don't control what's in the classroom. But if teachers and people of authority are going to stand in front of a class and read from these books and provide instruction, our parents feel like they need to protect their children from the contents of those books, and especially since the contents of those books at times conflict with their religious beliefs.
And according to the oral arguments and the questions from the justices, this is not presented in a neutral fashion. Much of this is promotion. And even there's evidence to suggest that was introduced into the court that school board officials and other officials were derogatory in describing parents and their motivations for wanting to opt their children out of this type of curriculum.
Yeah, that's right. So during school board, after they implemented this policy change and removed the opt-outs, hundreds of parents protested. And in response to some of those protesters and parents showing up at the meeting, one school board member said that a Muslim girl was just parroting her parents' dogma. They compared the Muslims to xenophobes and white supremacists. So there was some pretty blatantly derogatory statements made about these religious parents.
Colten, it appeared from the questions that the justices seemed taken aback by the fact that the Montgomery County school would not allow parents to opt their children out. It seemed like this is all you want. You just want to be opted out, and they're not accommodating you?
Yeah, that's right. I think you saw some shock from members of the court, some of whom are residents of Montgomery County, saying, Maryland as a state was founded on religious liberty. And this is exactly contrary to that teaching. And, I would say, Tony, you mentioned Obergefell at the beginning of the segment. Even in the majority of opinion in Obergefell, Justice Kennedy notes that there can be people of good religious faith on the other side of this issue. And so in that, we take that to mean like, look, if you're going to recognize a right to same-sex marriage, that also means one day you're going to have to protect the religious liberty of people that disagree with that decision. And so this case is an opportunity for the court to recognize, we have to permit religious liberty to thrive in the midst of a pluralistic society.
Fascinating interview. That was an interview Tony had with Colten Stansbury with the Becket Fund. Took place over the weekend on the program This Week on Capitol Hill. I encourage you, if you've not seen that or would like more information about that program, check out thisweekoncapitolhill.com. Thisweekoncapitolhill.com.